Well, hello guys, welcome back. Lately we're getting a lot of guys showing up here in the Philippines. Many of you have been waiting years to come here. Quite a few of you have been online communicating with the girl, sometimes for a few weeks, sometimes for months, sometimes for a year or two. And a lot of guys are asking me, well, I've been waiting so long to meet her and I want her to move in with me. And so the question is, and the theme of this video is, when should you ask this girl you've been communicating with online or this girl that you've just met to actually move in with you, live with you? If you go back to your country, say it's America, Australia, England, Germany, the countries where most of the guys that seem to end up here come from, if you met a girl in America, say at a nightclub or a party, or at college or wherever, at work, you took her out to dinner, you took her out to coffee, would you ask her to move in with you the next day? I don't think so. But it seems to be the norm here. The only time I've seen this type of situation happen before in the community was when I was working on cruise ships, because people were coming and going. You'd meet somebody, they were on a 3 months into a 6-month contract. You were, 1 day into a 9-month contract, and it never, worked out just right. So you'd meet someone you really liked and you hook up, and next thing you know, you're living together in your cabin or her cabin or whatever. But I never saw that in a country. I've been to like almost 100 countries around the world, but here in the Philippines, it seems like relationships move at lightning speed. It's very common, even before COVID, for two people to meet each other and a week later move in together. And I don't really think that's the best thing to do. I really think it's better to take your time. In some ways in the Philippines, as far as relationships, it's like it was, like say in the 1950s or 60s. These women, they want to be courted. They want you to get to know them, but the problem is that you go on one date with a girl. On the second date, in her eyes, you're her boyfriend after 2 dates. If you've been chatting with her online, after a week, she considers you her boyfriend, and she'll start calling you honey and love and I miss you, and next thing you know, I love you. And I mean, you haven't even met this girl in person. You're just seeing her online. You don't know what her life is really like. You don't know if she's married. You don't know if she's got a boyfriend. You don't know anything about her family. And you're saying back and forth you love each other. I see it all the time now, and it's happening a lot. I met a guy, the other day. He just got here. Never been to the Philippines in his life. He's already got a girl moved in with him that he just met. She just moved in. They've rented a place together. And it's happening a lot. Guys who've met girls online, which I understand a little bit more. If they've been like communicating online, chatting online, and they're convinced they're in love, but they've never met in person, and all this pent up, desire and frustration, and they get to the Philippines and they meet her and they rent a house and move in together right away. I mean, you know nothing about this person. And the thing is, you don't know anybody until you've lived with them. Trust me, you don't know anybody until you've actually lived with them, shared a house with them. And sometimes you move in with someone or they move in with you. Usually here it's like the girl moves in with the guy. You're not gonna be moving into her, nipa hut or a little house, out in the provinces. So usually she's gonna move in with you. And sometimes you find out, and a lot of guys have told me this, well, she's a slob. She's messy. She doesn't clean up after herself. She spends all day on her cell phone chatting with people. She's online, watching cat videos all day long. She keeps asking me for money, and she doesn't talk to me. I can't have a conversation with her, et cetera, et cetera. All these things you find out about this girl because you didn't do your research before you ask her to move in with you. Jen and I, a lot of you guys have said you're so lucky, and I am. I'm very lucky. I'm happily married. It all worked out for me here. But I dated some girls before Jen where, I found out that they weren't right for me. I didn't ask them to move in with me. I dated them for a while, found out that they weren't what I wanted. Some of them were nothing but trouble. And I cut my losses. With Jen and I, on our first date, her mother came along. Her mother was on our first date, and her best friend came with her too. We didn't have anything but daytime dates, no nighttime dates, for like the first month. I never took her out at night for the first month. So we'd go to lunch, we'd go for a hike, you know, go someplace. She'd come over, watch a movie sometimes, for a whole month. And then finally, after like 2 months, she spent the night one time. And she asked her parents, said, well, I'm going to spend the night with Mark. And then they wanted to meet me. So I went over and met the whole family. And I got quizzed by the whole family. And then we decided, after 2 or 3 months, I think it was like 3 months, I'm not sure exact time, but I asked her if she wanted to move in with me. And for me, I was perfectly fine just dating her, because we finally started going out at night. And still I would have her home like, by 10 o'clock. But the reason is I knew she was having a hard time at home. She wasn't happy there. She was crying all the time about the way she was being treated and the life she had at home. She didn't own anything. I thought she was malnourished because she was so thin. And I just thought she'd be better off with me. And so I took a chance, and she moved in with me. And with us, the little surprises and things you find out with someone only after they moved in with you were all good things. I mean, I was very, very lucky. I found out that she likes to take care of the house. She's always cleaning the house. She likes to do the laundry. She likes to cook. We like to talk about the same things. She's interested in science. She's interested in history. She's interested in what's going on around the world. Her English is excellent. We just got along really well. There was no ugly surprises. As a matter of fact, it's like, now it's been going on 2 years that we've been living together. And we just get closer all the time. It keeps getting better. There hasn't been anything at all that's happened or that she's done, or that I've done as far as I know, that either one of us are unhappy with the situation. But it doesn't always work out that way. I have a lot of my friends, I'd say probably 75% of them, who have horror stories about someone they moved in with, married even, built them a house, gave them all their money, and it didn't work out, and they lost, millions of pesos, got their heart broken, even fathered a child with some woman who turned out to be a terrible person. They didn't get to know her first. I mean, the last thing you want to do is come to the Philippines, meet some girl, maybe you met her online, you meet her here, she moves in with you, a few months later she's pregnant, she has a child which you're responsible for the rest of your life, and it turns out, once you get to know her, she's a terrible person. That happens. These Filipinas aren't all wonderful people, there's some of them that aren't. And then a lot of the guys that come over here aren't so great either. Don't forget that too. There's a lot of guys come over here for the wrong reasons. Far too many of them. But if you're a nice guy and you met a girl, my advice is take your time. What's the rush? If she's been living where she's living for her whole life, why do you have to all of a sudden have her move in with you the next day you get here? Why don't you just take your time, get to know her, take her out to dinner, maybe take some little trips with her, get to know the Philippines, get to know her family. I really recommend getting to know the family. And I know some guys, they find that stressful, especially if they're much older than their girlfriend is. But get to know the family. That'll tell you a lot about who she is as a person and what kind of a wife she's going to be, what kind of a girlfriend she's going to be. Because, like I said, they're not all the same. These are different people. It's just like in America or England or Australia. You can't go out with one Australian girl or one American girl and say, well, American girls are XYZ. They're all like this. Australian women are all the same. They're all this. Because it's not true. You know that. I mean, in your country, you could go out with 10 women and every one of them be totally different in different ways and have different interests and some things would work out for you, some things wouldn't. It's the same thing here. You can't come over here with this delusional vision of what a Filipina is like and think they're all these sweet, loyal, loving, kind, beautiful girls who want to have a foreign husband or boyfriend, and they're going to treat you better than you've ever been treated your whole life. Yes, that happens, but they're not all like that. And if you come over here believing that they're all like that, and you've got your head in the clouds, you're going to get burned. You're going to get burned. You're going to either, get your heart broken, you're going to lose your money, you're going to, make a big mistake. And in this country, I mean, if you piss off the wrong people, bad things can happen. They can. It's not to happen all the time, but it can happen. So, use your common sense. Think about what would you do in your country. And like if you meet a girl and the first thing she wants to do is negotiate her weekly allowance and how much money you're going to give her family before you even spent the night with her, I mean, she's trouble. She doesn't care about you. She's there for the money. So just do your due diligence, Take your time. There is no rush. I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for years to come over here, and you've been chatting with this girl and you're convinced, online you love her, and you've been sending her money, and this is the girl you're going to marry, and you've never even seen her in person. You never even spent one day with her. You're going to get burned. You're going to make a mistake. I mean, yeah, maybe one of them is going to work out fine. It's all going to be great. But trust me, I've seen too many guys over here that have made that exact same mistake, and it's turned out to be a disaster. They've blown through their life savings. They end up fathering a child that they can't support, and then they've got all that to worry about. It can turn out really bad. Or some of these guys I meet come over here. I met one recently. He's in very poor health, very poor health. Got a young wife, young girlfriend, they're not married yet, young girlfriend. Never spent any time with her at all. First time they're together is when he shows up here. And they're living together. Now what if, when he's older, when he's like 85 or 75 or whatever, and he's fragile, maybe he's got dementia, his health is failing him, and he's depending on her to look after him. He's depending on her to take care of him, make sure he gets his medication. And what if she decides that he's too much trouble? What if she decides that, he's not really worth it anymore? Is she going to even help him stay alive? Do you really want to be someone laying next to you that they're weighing the odds of whether you're worth more dead or alive? That happens. I talked to a guy not long ago whose best friend came over here with him, met a girl, built a house with her, for her. They lived together, started a business, and then it didn't work out. He found out she wasn't a very nice person. She was cheating on him, and so he broke up the relationship. He ended it. She hired some relatives of hers, and she had him killed, murdered. And nobody was ever arrested for it. He's dead. Now doesn't happen every day, but it has happened, And I don't want to try and scare you guys. I'm just saying, use your common sense. Just slow down. Slow down. Take your time. This girl that you've been talking to online, she may be a nice person, but when you actually meet her and you go out with her and spend some time with her, you may find out that she's just not right for you. You just don't click. There's no magnetism between the two of you. There's no connection. And then you go to your hotel or you go out with some friends at a party and somebody introduces you to their cousin or their sister or their aunt or whatever, and you say, wow, this is the girl I want. And someone you just met. I just heard a story today. This guy had been messaging with this girl, chatting with her online for about 6 months. Okay, comes to the Philippines. This is before COVID. This is happened a few years ago. And he comes over here, flies all the way over here to be with this girl. And the day that he arrives, she's supposed to meet him at the airport. turns out something happens and she has to work and she can't get away. So she sends her younger sister to meet him at the airport. He meets the younger sister, falls in love with her from the airport in the taxi to his hotel, gets her sister to come over to his hotel. They have dinner together. Next thing you know, he's not interested in the girl he flew over here to meet. He's interested in the sister, and they end up getting married. And they're still together. And the funny thing is, his brother comes over here and marries the girl he's supposed to be with. So it works both ways. But things here in the Philippines, when it comes to relationships, tend to move really, really quickly. And some of that's the guy's fault, and some of it's the women's fault. And it's up to you as a responsible man to slow things down. Just slow it down, take a breath. There's no rush. Take your time and make sure before you ask someone to move in with you if that's really what you want to do, if you really want this girl living with you, because it's easy to get them to move in, but if it doesn't work out, it's not that easy to get rid of them. What are you going to do? This girl, she quits her job, she moves out of her home, gives up her apartment to move in with you, and then a month later you say, oh, I don't like her, I don't want her in here. Then what are you going to do? How are you going to get rid of her? Where's she going to go? You're kind of responsible for her now. You can't just throw her out on the street. And that's something else. If you're one of those guys that does do that, I met guys who do, then word gets around. This is an island, guys. This is an island. It's a nation of islands. And if you're an asshole, and you're one of those guys that comes over and goes from girl to girl to girl, they know it. There's like the Filipino telegraph system here, and word gets around real quick, and you will be blackballed. No one will go out with you. So just be careful, be sensible, use your common sense. And if you come over here for the main reason of getting into a relationship, then you owe it to yourself to take your time. Don't you want the perfect person? And just because you've invested all this time in this person online in some dating site, and you're sure she's the one, you still haven't spending time with her. Chatting online is not dating. I know they call it online dating, but it's not dating. It's just chatting online. It doesn't mean anything. You can find out a little bit about a person as long as they're telling you the truth, but you're not going to know anything about a girl unless you actually spend time with her in person. And once she moves in with you, you may think you know everything, but then all the secrets come out. You're going to find out everything, good and bad, about this person once they move in. And sometimes once they move in, it's too late to change your mind. You can get stuck in a relationship that's not so good. So that's all I've got to say. I don't want to criticize you guys. I know some of you, you've just been waiting so long and you can't wait to be with this girl and you're sure you're doing the right thing. And maybe you are. I'm not saying it's not going to work out for you. I'm just saying be careful. Take your time. I know some of you are older and you're thinking, I don't have much time left. I've lost 2 years already because of COVID. But take your time. That's all I've really got to say. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I'll read all your comments. And like I said before, if you make it here to Dumaguete, you make it to Negros Oriental, look me up. Happy to have a cup of coffee with you. I've been meeting with guys lately almost every day. And so I'm happy to sit down with you, have a cup of coffee, answer your questions, and give whatever advice I can. Like I said, I'm no expert on the Philippines. I'm just a guy that's been here for 3 years. And for me, it worked out perfectly. I got really lucky in a lot of ways. So it's changed my life being here. And I'm hoping that if you come here, it can change your life too. So thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.